Hello, everybody. My name is Belinda Tan, and I am the Western Canadian representative of the International Association for the Study of Dreams. With me today is Dr. Leslie Ellis, who is an expert of experiential dream work and the focusing method. Dr. Leslie Ellis will be talking to us today about dream emotions.
Thank you, Belinda. Yeah, I just gave a seminar on this topic, and it's just really intrigued me. I came across an article. Maybe I'll show my slides in a minute, but I came across an article that said, and there's a lot of research that just keeps coming up with the same kinds of conclusions about about emotional regulation as being implicated in dreaming. And it seems, there seems to be quite a strong agreement about it. And I think, that to me, it seems somewhat obvious that that's what's happening. But as a dream therapist, I'm always curious about how to apply these ideas. So dreams are, in some ways, helping us experience our emotions that maybe we're not metabolizing during the day or in other ways, and bringing up things that we're maybe working through, and how do we as dream therapists use that idea, use dreams to help with the emotional regulation process. If it's already happening in our dreams, can we use the dream material to make it, use that therapeutic aspect of dreaming to our advantage. So I'm going to show you this slide presentation that I made, and it's a longer talk than I'm going to give you here. It just helps to kind of give me memory jogs for what I really want to say. And one of the things that I think is really the way I'm starting to see a lot of dreams, because I work with them in an experiential way and invite people to re-enter or re-experience several aspects of the dream. And what happens is it creates this felt sense, for those who know focusing, in a really particular way that it seems like the emotional landscape of a dream is partly, or maybe in large part, designed to evoke a really specific feeling. And the collection of images and the events that happen in our dreams are almost like engineered specifically to evoke this feeling in us. And the landscape and the dreamscape is going to be so unique to every person that way, because if just, I'll maybe walk you through an experience of it. So not that I know I'm preaching to the choir with this particular group, but I also, I've got a quote in here about something from Jenlin about the need to, for feelings to be metabolized, you actually have to feel them. You can't just talk about them, and you can't just sort of imagine what it would be like. They have to be directly felt for them to move. And so I think that that's a big part of what makes dreams and dream work effective, because it will unearth, dreaming will unearth feelings that maybe we don't always want to spend time with, and it happens in our dreaming. But one of the studies that really caught my attention was showing that the dreaming helps with emotional regulation, but only the remembered dreams. And I don't know if that's true. It's the only study I've seen that's come up with that, but I think, wow, there must be something particular about the dreams that we remember, and something more important about the things we remember. Because there's a lot of research I've seen where they're saying, well, for dreaming, for us to make sense of dreaming, it has to work whether we remember the dreams or not, because most dreams are not remembered. But this study was basically saying that it's the remembered dreams that actually have the impact of helping us regulate the feelings that are brought up by that dream. So that's kind of what got me started on this whole topic. And I'm just going to share my screen. And I won't necessarily speak to each of these in sort of great detail, but let me see here. All right, and just start. So the title of this talk was Experiencing Dreaming as Catalysts of Emotional Regulation. And so what I talked about was well, basically what I just said, but also I'm offering an experiential of what I just said. I always like to start with giving you an experience of what I'm going to talk about, and then it makes more sense when I speak about it later. A little bit about what we already know about dreams and emotion regulation, how to do it safely, how to invite dream embodiment in a way that's safe. And I won't do a demo or examples because we don't have a lot of time. But the first thing I want to do is an experiential practice. And so I just want to give you a sense of, I've got this person weaving, and the way I see this process is that when we have a dream image or maybe a dream vignette, that what I've invited people to do is pick up a felt sense of maybe the helpful place in the dream first. This is an idea from Jen that I find really supportive of going deeper into a dream, is to start with getting something that gives you comfort and a resource. And then picking up another aspect of the dream that might be more, maybe a familiar emotion. And then maybe we'll do one more where you pick up something in the dream that's a thread that has some, some aspect to it that is a little bit more challenging. And then if you hold these all at once, it seems like what happens, and this is how I do dream work over a period of time, is that the elements start to come together, and the feeling of what the dream is bringing starts to become clear. And it's not clear a lot of times until it's felt. And to look at a dream from the outside and the dream text and go, I think it means this, or it probably is about that, is speculative. And that feeling into the dream, to me, seems like the way to really understand the language that the dream is speaking. So if you guys are game, we'll just walk through a short experiential process of this, and then we can chat about it when we're done. It'll just be kind of a quick version, just to give you a sense of it. So I want to start with the focusing step of clearing a space. So just starting by just settling into your chair and into your body, and just noticing inside if there's anything that's distracting you, anything between you and feeling really present, and just setting that aside for the moment. And until in checking back in until you feel like you've got a space in there that's really present and free of distractions. So I'll give you just a minute of quiet, just to check in and gently set aside anything that's between you and feeling present and okay in this moment. So I'll be quiet and let you do that, or whatever way feels right to you. And sometimes I know when I start to feel a little more space internally, it sometimes helps to just take a deep breath into it and feel it expanding a little bit. And when you feel like you have an open space internally, I just want you to invite a dream image to arrive. spontaneously. So let the dream image choose you, and it can be something that you've had, a recent dream or something from a while ago, or even just an image that arrives spontaneously right now. But I'm just letting you invite an image that wants to show up for this particular exercise. And I'll just give you a minute to let your dream image arrive. So just maybe wave your hand if you don't have an image yet. Okay, so everybody's got something. So with this particular image that's arrived, I want you to just start to fill in a little bit of the setting, where it's situated, noticing if there's a particular landscape or hardscape or weather. So sort of like, where is this dream, and try to pick up as many senses as are available. It just deepens the experiential nature to feel into the quality of the air and the smells and the sounds and whatever else that you notice about the environment that this dream is in. And also notice what's particular interesting about the central image of your dream. And you've gotten a little bit familiar with it. I'd like you to notice what in this dreamscape or in this image, it feels particularly supportive in some way, something that makes you curious or has a quality that feels helpful. And just let the first thing that occurs to you as helpful be the one you choose. You don't need to think about it too much. And with that helpful aspect, start to make it really present. Make it more present than, so it could be sitting right in front of you, or you could feel into the image itself. Just whatever you need to do to make it evoke something in your body, some kind of a felt sense of it. So bring it close enough to you in a way that you can sense into what's helpful about it. And notice where in particular you feel this the most strongly. You might, if it's easily available, notice what kind of quality this helpful element evokes in you. What makes it, what makes it supportive? What about it would bolster you? In what particular ways does it help you? And just keep that with you. Maybe you can find a word or phrase to keep it with you, a sort of shorthand version of what it is that you find helpful about it. And then just pick another, cast around your dream for another image that wants your attention. And it can be anything at this point, but just something else in the dream that you find evocative. And I always like it if you can just let the first thing that you land on be the thing that you stay with, even if your mind is going, oh, maybe there's something better. Just let the first thing that came to mind be that next image. And we're going to do a similar thing. We're going to just um, spend a little time with this image and turning it over, feeling into it, letting it have an impact on us, noticing, if any kind of memories or, just feelings or aspects of your life um, feel related to it. Just let it kind of be just so present to you that it evokes another feeling. And again, maybe you could name it. Put it beside the one that you find helpful. And just trying to basically invite you to pick up pieces of the dream and make a composite of the feelings that are there. And so, even though I'm going through this more quickly than I normally would, I just want to give you a taste of it. And one last step is, you know, um, Jenlin said that dreams often present something we're working through, maybe something a little bit problematic, challenge of sorts. And so I wonder if this dream image, or this dream image in its setting, has any sort of feeling like that, any place in it that feels like there's a little bit of a challenge or a mystery. And so just see if there's something like that. Don't force it, of course, but if there's something in this image that feels like, something you're chewing on, working through, just notice what in the dream is most related to that feeling. And just spend a little time with it, being curious about it. Kind of just turn all of these over, the trouble spot, the helpful place, the other part of the dream. See if you can kind of make a collage where you can feel a little bit of the whole situation. And just imagine that your dream is specifically wanting you to feel this very unique, subtle mix. And if that's true, this dream is evoking something of this collection of feelings that you've gathered up. Does that, this is a rhetorical question, but does that help you to understand your dream and what it's bringing or what it's asking? So I wonder if then, if you have a sense of what it's asking or what it's, what this particular image, you have a better sense of what it's evoking in you. Um, is there a way that that you can let this dream either infuse you in some way that carries this situation forward, or even in the dream itself, is there another step that moves it from where it is to just to dream the dream onward a step? And again, this is like just if it's easy, I don't want you to force anything, but you could maybe ask, is there a way forward from here, and what would it be? So we're just gonna kind of wrap that up, um, kind of take your leave of the image and bring your attention back to sitting in the room, in the screen, and just gonna stop sharing for a minute, and just curious how that was for you guys, if anybody wants to share.
I can share my experience. So I had this dream, and it's just a still picture from this morning. I have been going through some issues with steering organization, and I'm kind of at this. The whole organization is kind of like in this transition period, so it can go one way or another. And last night, before I went to sleep, I asked for a solution. I sort of incubated this dream, and this morning the image is of a woman standing just with, I can only see her back, and she's wearing a black and white sweater and holding a bike just outside of an old stone house. And I got up and thought this is a really excellent image to work with, because it evoked a memory of just recently when I was at Rolduc. I checked out a bicycle and took it for a ride to Aachen, which is a city that's about 40 minutes bike ride away. And it was a very lovely day and a really great experience. So that being able to connect with that memory really filled me with this positive feeling that I'll be able to navigate and move forward. And then when you were taking us around the dream, I noticed that, which I didn't notice this morning, I noticed there was a window kind of up high, not like quite second floor, but kind of just close, kind of in between. And there's like flowers, red flowers, kind of trailing down the window. And that also made me feel just joyful when I noticed that.
So it was a very positive experience for you.
Yeah, it was a really wonderful dream and wonderful experience to revisit this dream and noticing new details in the dream.
I love that, actually. That very often I notice that in re-experiencing the dream or inviting other people to, the things that you didn't remember when you wrote it down, or details that weren't necessarily noted before, are there.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Linda. Anyone else? Care to share?
Could I mention one thing that happened in my situation? I was a bit taken aback by how quickly an image came that was from outside the dream. It had a sense about it. In other words, I understand why it came from the dream, but it was rather compellingly uh, not a part of the dream explicitly, at least, but um, as though it already echoed outside the dream and in my life. I don't know how
Interesting.
common that is. I think sometimes we invite that, and I wasn't inviting it this time so much as it happened, right? It happened to me.
Yeah. That I always see that as a mark of authentic active imagination when it doesn't, it's not planned and it's not, it has, it's like it's got its own kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It like it has its own volition. It's not coming from you. I find that to be, those things to be particularly interesting, valuable, helpful. And I do find that when I ask for experience, like this kind of process, things come from outside the dream quite often. Because I think at the beginning I said it could be in your dream or not in your dream, and so it's a suggestion that I think sometimes our subconscious picks up on. It's like, it's what it does, I think, is it makes the dreaming really present, and that your dream is opened up as well as the process of dreaming. And so it's like the dream is continuing in the moment, and the pieces that might have been, added if you had dreamt it on, or here now. I love that when it happens, actually. Think of it as quite what's meaningful, generative, interesting. I also find, I have this idea that because I've worked with dreams that come back from many years ago, and they might have been stuck in a nightmare that's got this particular memory associated with it, and the dream is maybe repeated even in someone's childhood or nightmares, and that when I invite people to go into the dream as a living dream, then the dream catches up to where they are in their lives. I think the dreams that you wrote down are outdated versions, actually, of whatever it was representing, and that when you engage with them in the present, they catch up to where you are. So they're always going to be a little bit fluid, and sometimes dramatically so. Sometimes these nightmares become completely transformed because the person who's dreaming it isn't the same anymore. They're so much more capable or brave, or the whole situation has changed. And then I think the dreams that they move around, I think, is more accurate than to say that that's my dream and that's how it's going to stay and it's always going to be just like that. At least that's kind of how I see it.
May I ask if this spontaneous dream image is related to the dream that you were working with?
You're asking me right now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, unambiguously. In other words, it is something that I have a strong sense still came from the dream. It's not as though suddenly I'm outside of the dream.
Mm-hmm.
There's a felt origin within the dream for sure.
Mm-hmm. So it's like the original dream is still unfolding.
Actually, that's something I'm very curious about. So I take that suggestion very seriously.
Did you want to throw something in here, Jean?
Sorry, I had to get the mute button.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was interesting. I had I only remember a small snippet of a dream with Hugh Grant, which I never dream about movie stars, but this was like one time, and he was a secret agent, and he was at the age when, so when I looked at him as kind of the image, the feelings that come up are that kind of, he has that kind of funny charm, but there's a befuddlement and also a strong ambivalence. And so I have all of those kind of felt feelings when I think about Hugh Grant. I just like immediately my stomach just kind of does this dance of, okay, funny, charming, underneath kind of bitter, never really wanted to be an actor, too good at it to give up. Like, so he has this thing in my life of just, I've kind of grown up with him. And in the dream, I'm excited to see him because I have just learned that the British use the word quite in a different way than Americans do. And I want to explain this to him. I want to tell him that I understand, but he grabs me first and he gives me a word that he just found out is different from American and British. So he wanted to tell me all about it. So I was listening to that. I got really frustrated. When is it ever my turn? And that was like the whole dream, but the piece that felt hopeful to me was just kind of grounding myself to the dusty road and the warm sunshine and this feeling of being very grounded. There's something about being on a hard top, so it's packed down, but it's dirt, it's dust, it's dusty, and that made it feel very safe for me, I guess. Grounded. I was like, there was the ground.
Wow. Well, thanks for that beautiful description of Hugh Grant. He's always plays the same character, and it just makes you squirm. But it's like
He hates it too. He's gone on TV
Totally.
multiple times. I hate this.
Oh,
But he has played some really bad characters too. But just early in his career, he was great.
yeah.
Anyway,
He played the Oompa Loompa in the new
yeah.
Wonka movie.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, that was
Funny.
hilarious. Never
Anyway.
expected him to take a role like that.
No, he always plays this sort of awkward. Okay, I'm gonna just go to one more thing. Well, I'm not getting through any of this or much of this, but what I wanted to say was just there was a few things I wanted to highlight. One was, well, this idea from Ernest Hartman, I really do find powerful, the idea of dreams as picture metaphors for our most salient emotions. And he used the image of a tidal wave as overwhelming emotion after trauma, but I feel like when you have a complex image, it's even more interesting to think about. And when people are asking me how to make sense of their dreams, and and they want a quick answer, which is there isn't one, right? But I do say, well, one way to think about it is that your dream is a picture of the way you're feeling. And or if it's that, it's also an invitation to feel into the various aspects. Your dream is bringing you an image that evokes a feeling that is really alive for you right now. And when you feel it, when you gather up the dream emotion, and obviously I would take more time than we did in our quick intro to this, but when you gather all that up, you'll actually know what the dream is saying. And it's not an interpretation. That's not what a dream means. A dream is actually evoking something. And I had some examples, but I won't go into them necessarily, but I would say that the particular images, this is why I hate dream dictionaries really, is because the particular image and how it relates to you is going to be entirely unique to you. And so I've been dreaming, well, I will say this Irish setter fox I talk about in this slide, I've been getting a series of dreams of animals that are half domesticated and half wild. And so this is an Irish setter fox that was a little bit neglected and wild in this dream. And then just now, when I was doing the exercise with you, I got this dream that was first it was a moray eel, and it turned into a mongoose, and eventually settled into a hyena dog. And I have been getting this really interesting mix, and I'm feeling into what it's like to be, you know, partly domesticated and partly wild, and it's deeply meaningful to me, that idea. So and that it keeps coming is also something that I feel like is important for me to spend time with and feel into the animal. I won't go into necessarily the research. Just wanted to. Yeah, I just wanted to give you this quote that from Jenlin, because this is what I think is partly what's going on, is that our dreams, he's like basically suggesting that unless you fully feel a feeling, it stays the same. So this is his quote, his wording: what is split off and not felt remains the same, and when it's felt, it changes. Most people don't know this, but if there's in you something bad, sick, unsound, let it inwardly be and breathe. And that's the only way it can evolve and change into the form it needs. So I think of this with respect to dream images. If they're images of our feelings, and we keep, you know, repressing them or pushing them away or not fully feeling them, then they come back in the same form. And when they're fully felt, which is what I think is the most important thing to do with the dream, is not necessarily to analyze or understand it in any sort of logical way, because dreams aren't really coming from that place, is just to fully feel them, immerse in them. And Jenlin's idea of finding help is a way, I think, to make it possible to fully immerse in the feelings by first finding the places in the dream image that support you, so that you're more able to be with the more challenging aspects of the dream image, the things that bring up feelings that are uncomfortable. And we do often dream about things that are uncomfortable, and maybe that's why we get stuck. But what I've noticed is people will often say when they go through this that first it's uncomfortable, and then it changes form and it becomes something different. And it wouldn't happen if you're not willing to at least sit with what might be bad or sick or unsound. The things we avoid often turn up in our dreams, and that maybe that is one of the reasons we have dreams, is to give us these feelings that haven't been metabolized, so that we can have them, so that they can move forward. So that's like the essence of my talk. So I'll just leave it there, because I wanted to spend the last 10 minutes seeing what you guys think about that, and answering questions, or just hearing more about what your thoughts are on these ideas.
I really like this. And I think part of it is because of my own understanding of dreams as being kind of emotion that starts in us and then is projected out into a dreamscape that reflects back the emotions, so we can see them. We kind of get them in and out and see them and interact with them. And then as we wake up and remember, then it becomes another metabolizing. So this feels like, yeah, this feels right to me. About.
And what you just said kind of makes that piece of research, that recent piece of research that I flagged, kind of makes sense, is that the remembered dreams give you another chance to feel them. Whereas if you don't remember them, it isn't going to, I don't know if it's, maybe it just remains unconscious and still not fully metabolized. I don't know. I mean, there's some, you know, some research like that, like Rosalind Cartwright, you know, she did the research of people who would dream about that were depressed after a divorce, and when they dreamt about the divorce in a certain way, they were able to recover from their depression more quickly. Whereas if they didn't dream about it, or they dreamt about it in a repetitive way where it never changed, then the dreams didn't help. But it's like, it's hard to get at this with research because you can't really see the process in motion. So I feel like this way, at least, of picking up the dream and feeling into it is like bringing that dreaming emotion metabolization process alive as you're awake. It's just so much easier to see what's happening. Whether it actually replicates what the dream is doing, I'm not sure. I think it does to some degree, because the dreams appear to come alive in a dreamlike way. So yeah, I'm rambling. Let me be quiet for a minute.
Ramble away.
I want to say that I really appreciate this deep dive into this topic, because emotions is such a subtle thing, and it's not it's difficult to measure, and it's difficult to feel. I just really appreciate you making the time and space so we can like really get into it. And I don't have any questions, but I have a couple of kind of connections that I want to mention. One is a quote that I've shared on the IASD Facebook page recently, and it's by Alfred Adler. He said this, wrote this in the 1930s. The goal of the dream is the feeling it leaves behind. So I think that this is a very relevant quote to our discussion today, to our topic today. And the other connection that I want to make is Jean Campbell's dream work, body work. You probably have been in that workshop. I was very, I was very, I found it to be such a rich learning experience to make that connection, that dreams have this connection with our body, and there's it isn't just a mental thing. There is that mind-body connection, and it almost feels like, as you were describing it, that when our nervous system pick up the sensation, like if there's a felt sense that something has moved in our body, then the dream somehow becomes real.
Yeah, I think it's possible to keep the dream. I almost think that dreams are like always happening in us, in a way that there's things emotional, maybe what you would call complexes, but a collection, not just a simple feeling, but like a felt sense is also a good way to think about it, that are always alive in us and working in the background or underground, unless we pay attention to them. And I know, being a focuser, I know Donna's done quite a bit of focusing as well, that when you turn toward it, there's a whole complexity of feeling that you can describe, and that has images associated with it that's very dreamlike, and it's always present. And I think that by the same token, you can turn toward a dream image that's still alive in some way with you, still has an active feeling, that's not resolved, or that's not history, that's still got some processing to do. And you can always find it, and the dream will always feel alive. And when you turn back to the dream, it's moved, and it will move as you feel into it. And the more you metabolize the feelings, the more the images will seem friendlier, seem more understandable. And I've just done this so many times with dreamers that it's like it happens every time if I create the right relationship of evoking the dream in a living, felt, embodied way, and not in an intellectual way. I think in thinking about it, you don't get to it. It has to be more like this focusing way. And I have, just what people just think it's kind of astounding that their dream comes alive and it changes. But now I'm starting to think that this is actually always what's happening with dreams, if we just don't necessarily know, because we're not who takes the time to sit and gather up your dream and say, well, where are you now, and find that it's moved a step. If I've moved, if the dream, it's like it's a reflection of how much I have felt into and been able to move forward with whatever that interesting collection of feelings is the dream is depicting. If that makes sense.
I have a question for you. Oh, sorry, Don, did you want to say something first?
If you don't mind, let me do it. I believe my comment is more nearly like a question for Leslie. It's some hesitation I have about the language of emotion in this context. Because you regularly also go back to the language of a felt sense. And the word felt sort of tilts in the direction of emotion. I agree. And yet there's a way in which I think Janlin talks about a felt sense that is not quite emotion either. It has something that has, I don't know whether the right word is more nuance, more sort of pregnant in a way that is the way some emotions are not. They sort of stand out right in front of you, in your face. So I worry a little bit about the language of emotion in this context. And I'm certainly, as you know, drawn toward the language of a felt sense, as though that has a certain priority.
Yes, I completely agree with you. I think part of the reason I pick up the word emotion is because that's how it's referred to in all the research. Pretty much looks at emotion, and I'm really thinking emotion is just if you're a painter, emotion is the primary colors, but when you mix them, you get so much more richness and complexity. The emotion is an ingredient, but it certainly way oversimplifies what I'm talking about. So I agree with you entirely. I just don't know how to, in my talking about it in a way that's understood by everyone. Not everyone knows what a felt sense is. So I'm hoping by way of starting with something that kind of gets people's attention, I can then educate them a little bit more about about focusing, because I completely agree.
Yeah, and I understand the motivation on your part. I mean, I just happened to be in a conversation with somebody else on a similar notion and a similar conceptual boundary question. So it sort of stands out to me today, but I think I understand you well enough to know that we are not far removed from, our perspectives are not far removed from each other in this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think emotion, the word is kind of a blunt instrument, but it's it's a starting place, I guess. Yeah, thank you.
May I just jump in and clarify the difference? Is it correct to understand felt sense as more of a bodily experience, whereas the emotions is more like a mental experience? No.
Emotions are very much embodied. They're physiological events first, and then you might have ideas about them. But the thing about emotions is that they're like, I think the analogy of primary colors is a better way, because emotions are simple. They're usually one note, like, yeah, I feel angry, I feel sad. And there's this sort of catalog of emotions. It's finite, and a felt sense has many strands and is nuanced and includes emotion, but it's not as simple as that. And what happens with a felt sense is that you get a sense that's embodied, but as you pay attention to it, it has many strands and it opens to more. And whereas an emotion, it's kind of like, okay, that's it, that's anger, that's what, it doesn't have the nuance or the ability to move forward. It's just a way to describe a feeling, and a felt sense is so much more. It's more like a dream, actually. A felt sense. It's multifaceted, and it opens to more
complex.
Yeah, and it is tangibly felt, but it's not like a normal sensation in your body. It might come in the form of a sensation, but in my experience of it, it comes as more of an imaginal sensation. Like I can locate it in my body, but it isn't like I could locate a bruise or something like. So I think it's there's not a simple way to describe it, even though I've taught focusing for, I'd have to say 30 years. I'm still struggling, because the thing about focusing and the thing that Jenlyn taught me is, never to have a pat answer, but to always feel into the question and describe it as you're sensing. And so it has this halting quality that I'm demonstrating really well. But that is following a felt sense, because it moves as you attend to it.
Thank you.
I don't know if I cleared that up or made it more confusing.
No, I get that the felt sense is more complex, multi-layered, and not just as one kind of single ingredient, but there's more of a mixed feeling that's more complex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and current. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I think you were going to say something, Jean.
I forgot. This was a really interesting question. I am, I'm caught by another piece that comes from the research in Alzheimer's that was looking at kind of a felt sense of identity, where you have your assumed identity, even if you've forgotten everything about your life, you can't articulate it. There's still moving through the world from your core sense of how the world is. So they gave an example. There are two examples. One of being, if you're looking at art, the thing that artists are often trying to get to is a felt kind of remote, a felt reaction without it being identified by one particular image or even one particular emotion. But when they talked about it in the Alzheimer's, they used the experience of a woman who had been very wealthy and very proud of her pearls, and she did not have that sense anymore, except every time she had her bib put on as she was having a meal, her hands would go up and she'd do this to move the pearls out to show them. And it wasn't like she could remember there were pearls, but she remembered this as part of being who I am, of kind of being up here. And so we move through the world with our identities that are so much deeper than what we're thinking and feeling, that those actually remain intact even when our memories are gone. We still move through the world as ourselves, even if we can't cognitively link that back.
That's
So
beautiful.
That's what I thought of, what that felt sense is, that deeper sense of identity and how the world presents to us, how we move in the world. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for that. So I'm wondering are we at time now? Is it
Oh, it's that time. Yeah, well, thank you so much. This has been such a treat for me to dive into this topic, and also hearing this rich discussion at the end too. Thank you so much, Dr. Ellis, for leading us into this topic, and thank you, Dong and Jing, for coming to be part of today's meeting. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, you need to stop the recording actually.
I do? Oh,
Yeah, because I made you the host.
Okay. Happy to do that here. Yeah, thanks everybody.